Okay, so today I wrote my objectives on the board. Today we are going to analyze and decipher the language of Hamlet a little bit more. You guys have been doing that in your tragedy journal. We're just going to talk about it a little bit more today. And then I have a handout, but we'll do this in class, where we'll translate lines from Hamlet to modern contemporary English. And then lastly, if there's time, we'll start reading Act 4 as a class today to kind of help you guys get that out of the way. The first thing I wanted to do is show you a video clip of a comedian doing a stand-up act, so there's a little bit of laughing and clapping throughout it. But he's retelling the story of the Three Little Pigs if he was to tell it in Shakespearean language. So, I thought this would be kind of fun for us to listen to the language telling a familiar story. Machine warm up for a minute.
But I've been reading, trying to read through the classics, get a little more culture into my life. And here's what I've discovered. I am an idiot. Reading the classics. But I've been reading, trying to read through the classics, get a little more culture into my life. And here's what I've discovered. I am an idiot. Reading the classics is hard. It's all in English, and which is my native language. But I am struggling through the classics, and I don't know what happened. I don't know how we got from... That was the daily language, that they used in the 1800s and 1700s. I looked it up. Shakespeare had a working vocabulary of 54,000 words. 54,000 words in his working vocabulary. We, today, in the United States, have a working vocabulary of 3,000 words. That's why when we read Shakespeare, we're like, what light through yonder window? Does this come on a DVD? And it kind of put me under the pile a little bit, and it kind of made me think, gosh, I'm not as sharp as I thought I would. If I'd have been born in the 1700s, presumably, children had a bigger vocabulary than I had, which means I wouldn't even be able to recite fairy tales to kids, because I'm not smart enough. I'd have to be like... In time past, though not long ago, there lived pigs in stature little, in number 3, who, being of an age both entitled and inspired to seek their fortune, did set about to do thusly. When they had travelled a distance, pig numbered first spake, saying, "Hearken, brethren, heed this tempestuous realm. Tarry we long from hearth and home, we shall fare, I fear, not well." And so, being collectively agreed, but individually impelled, the diminutive swine set about each to erect for himself an abode. Pig number 1 did construct his house from straw. Pig number 2 did likewise, though rather not from straw, instead from sticks. Meanwhile, unique in his imaginings, pig number 3 did erect as his domicile stalwart and garish, a structure made from brick entirely. Soon there happened along, as is frequently the scenario in classic tale of protagonist pig or red-hooded child, a wolf. Carnivorous nature in full season, he called out to the straw-ensconced swine, saying, "Pray thee, little pig, grant me entrance." But Pig 1 recalled with sage foreboding that he is mad who trusts in the tameness of a belly-pinched wolf, and responded immediately, "Nay, it shall not be, indeed, not by wit or whiskered jowl." Prepared for this most expected response, the wolf replied immediately, "Then steel thyself, little pig. Forthwith shall I endeavor, by employing means both huffing and puffing, to dismantle yon flaxen fortress." Whereupon there issued forth from the wolf an exhale of gale proportions, that quickly rendered straw hovel to dregs and dross, and carried aloft piglet and shattered quarters both. to claw and fang. Piglet 1 made haste, wolf in pursuit, to the stick-festooned sanctum of Peccary Secondary. Causing Pig 2 to cry out in dismay, "Well, this knocks my knickers!" The marshalling of feral wolf to my doorstep is nowhere among those endeavors amenable or congenial. 1,000 pounds, squealed 2. 1. 'Twould seem the beast made for breath has purged me of home and sound judgment alike. The mighty maelstrom of the wolf's exhale splattered second swine's shack and shortened his sanctimonious scolding simultaneously. Lo and behold, squealed 2, stand we now amid wooden wreckage, tremulous and vulnerable, with nary a strategy for eschewing the canine devourer looming in deadly proximity. Strategy, squealed 1, while 'tis noble to contemplate tactical particularities, pressed as we are with the time restraint forbidding detailed strategical conversations, I would urge we run! Whether by their own fleet-footed competence or the wolf's winless attitude, the diminutive swine arrived at their ultimate kindred neighbor's inexpugnable brick ingress unscathed. Upon the third pig's door, with urgent hooves they pounded, calling out, "Unbar this entrance, and with haste we beseech thee!" The third pig hailed from the American colonies. And possessing a vocabulary substantially less robust than his impromptu visitors, replied, "Say what?" "Seek we sanctuary," they implored, on the verge of hysteria, "lest we fall forthwith to the ravenous appetency of yonder approaching carnivore." Still confounded by their importunate words, Pig 3 did render ajar his portal, whereupon 1 and 2 spilled through and collapsed beyond the threshold, enervated. So y'all just wanted to come in? You could have said that. The sinister hiss of the wolf could once again be heard outside. "Pray thee, pigs, grant me entrance." "The wolf," said 1 and 2. "Wolf," said 3. "What do you suppose he wants?" "He seeks to gain purchase within. Indeed, he would occupy this very alcove were he but afforded the most meager of opportunities." Right, I'm just going to go ask him what he wants. "Under no circumstances," squealed 2, flinging self bodily against the portal. "There is naught to be gained accosting external opponents, save our own immediate demise." "What did you say about my mama?" House and occupants were again engulfed in a malevolent blast of wolfish wind. The foundation shook, the frame rattled, and lo, to the astonished eyes of Piglet and encroaching scoundrel alike, stood the third pig's lodging undaunted. Good news for you pig fans. Aghast and dismayed, Pig 2 queried of 3, "How does, against such relentless and torrential onslaught, this domicile endure?" Pig 3 puffed out chest, tapped a hoof to the hearth, and responded, "It's American made." But I'm...
Okay, so what were some of the challenges you had with the language?
The short two-letter words that you say, like low and thee and thusly and
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so the adding of words that seems to lengthen the sentences,
Yeah.
right? Why didn't you just get right to the point sometimes we think? Okay, what other issues did we have with the language? Did it help that you knew the story? That helped a lot, so you could follow along because you knew when he mentioned straw and sticks, you knew where to be in the story, and we mentioned that 1 pig, 2 pig, 3 pig, you knew where to be in the story. What if you weren't familiar with the story?
Everything would be bad.
It would be very difficult. How many of you had read Hamlet before this class? Okay, one. That's about what we had in the last class. One person had read it before. So we have one person in here that's somewhat familiar with the story. So not only do you have to figure out what's happening in the story, you have to figure out the language too. So I kind of wanted to help out with the language. I have a handout, they're over here, that we're going to complete in class together. And if you could hand out on your side, please. Thank you. And if you could take care of your side. Thanks. Now we'll wait till everyone has a copy. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill this out in groups of 3, preferably. If you want to pair up, that's fine too. And then I'm going to give you guys about 10 minutes to fill it out in groups, and then we're going to share our translations. That way we learn from each other. Thank you. We learn from each other how to decipher this language. So, the instructions at the top. Below are some lines from some of William Shakespeare's plays and sonnets, which is just Hamlet today, written in early modern English. On the lines below each quote, translate each sentence into modern English as we might speak it today. So we'll go through number 1 together to kind of give you an idea of what I want. Now each one, like I said, is a quote. Someone spoke these lines. So if you would stay true to sticking with the quotes when you do your translation, something that, how they would say it today to us. And it doesn't need to be a direct translation where you need to figure out what sallied and flesh means and then translate it down there. It's a general translation of the idea. So let's open up our books to Act 1, Scene 2, because that's the clue for number 1. Because it's going to be nearly impossible to translate without putting these lines in context with the rest of the book. To save time, I'm just going to tell you what page this is found on, but the others you'll have to find yourself. So the first one is page 14 in your book. It is the middle of the page where Hamlet is talking. So the quote is, oh that this too sallied flesh would melt, thaw and resolve itself into a dew. Okay, so we're not quite sure what he says, so let's read the rest of the lines. And we noticed right before that Hamlet is alone, right? Everybody exited. Hamlet's alone, so we kind of get the gist. He's talking aloud to himself. So he says, into a dew, and then he goes on, or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon against self-slaughter. Oh God, oh God. Okay. So based on just those 4 lines, we can probably figure out what he is saying from the clues, because there's some really strong language that he uses that lets us know what he's talking about. For one thing, he's pleading, right? And he uses the word self-slaughter. So these are all clues as to what he could possibly be saying in this line I gave you. So just based on those clues, just throw it out there. What do you think he could possibly be saying? Yes?
That he would just disappear, pretty much? Or melt into nothing?
Melt and disappear. That's exactly what I got out of it too. Does that sound right? So at first he's saying, I wish I were dead. I wish I could disappear. Just like we feel sometimes we wish we could disappear when we're humiliated or things are really rough in our life. He had just lost his father. And then he goes into talking about suicide. But in the line that we used, he's basically saying, I wish I were dead, or I wish I could disappear, and my flesh would melt. Okay, so I kind of gave you the clue, or kind of gave you the first one. And then if you guys want to go ahead in your groups and do the second one, there is a typo in number 2. It's Polonius speaking, not Hamlet. So So you want to make note of that. Number 2 will help you find it. And then number 5, it says queen. It's really the play queen. So Baptista, right? And number 5. Does anyone have any questions before they get into their groups? Okay, no questions. Go ahead and get into your groups. We have about 10 minutes. So remember, number 2, Polonius is speaking, and number 5 is the play queen, the Baptista. Baptista. find the quotes fairly easily? Okay.
Page 22, line 2.
Okay. Hamlet's off. If the song were to bring you back instead of a dog, say leave for the good of war. Have you a dog? It's so messed up.
Okay.
It's like, they're talking about, does the sun bring maggots in a dead dog? Like a good caring answer almost means a horrible thing. Do you have a daughter? He's giving unword to horrors basically, but I don't know how. Or if the sun breathes. This one I want to remember. Or if the sun breathes maggots in a dead dog. Being a good kissing carrion. That is messed up.
You could interpret it that way, but remember that
What he's saying is basically when we're talking about matters
who
of
do you
honesty,
think is he
he's pretty much
talking
saying
about?
quality is
Not someone that's not in the room.
he's like,
Because
no,
then
no,
he
no.
mentioned
Then he's
secret, right?
he is, but
So, it's basically being rude, right? Insulting, yeah.
But things
So,
like-
yeah, we're trying to figure out, and there's not.
he's saying, to be honest, it's
Translation,
important
direct
about
translation.
he's like, yeah. Or if the sun breeds maggots in a dead dog,
Because that's what it says at the right.
being a good kissing carrion. How do you get dog?
I mean, it's super good.
What are they talking about?
Well, no, this is where Columbus is formulating the idea that he's that love.
But Colonius,
In my youth, I suffered too much extremism. Very easy to speak to him again. This is where he's formulating that idea that Hamlet's mad for love, what he's not.
okay, and
That
that's
was just bad.
it could work, but then he mentioned the daughter, so that kind of throws it off, but it doesn't fit with translation. Maybe it's the world
Or if the sun brings maggots in a dead dog.
It's basically
It
calling
brings filth, I guess.
Okay, about 2 more minutes.
dog all because it said a good kissing carrion, and you look in the bottom, it says carrion is a piece of raw meat or a horse. So you can say, so then you can say, oh, well, you're as good as that.
That one was hard.
The Bible puts it as I will trade you a greater. So there you go, guys.
Yeah. When I say check yourself before you write yourself.
Okay, guys, wrap it up so we can start sharing some of our ideas. Okay, let's go to number 1. Now, we kind of roughly figured that one out together. Are you guys happy with what we figured out, or did you add something to it? Or did you read something different? Everyone pretty much wrote down kind of the ideas that we had in number 1. Number 1. Okay, so number 2. Okay, what group wants to share with us they read us the quote and then tell us their translation? Which group? Thank you. Will you read the quote that I gave you and then tell us your translation?
It says, to thine own self be true. You gave us a quote, or you just pick one?
Yeah, number 2.
Number 2, okay.
Yeah, please.
To thine own self be true, and it must follow as night and day. Thou canst not then be a false to any man.
Okay.
And basically, it's stay true or is true to yourself at any given time, all the time. Never be a false friend or person.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have anything to add to what they said about being true to yourself, being a good friend? And then the consistency, you said at all times, that's brought up with the night and day, that's consistent. So consistently could be a good person. And when I was reading this one, I also thought of this poster, this little mini poster your teacher has on the wall. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. Going back to being an honest, true person. That would work also. Okay, number 3. What group wants to read that and share what they... I'll let this group go because they had some discussions and they weren't liking what the other people were saying in their group. So if you guys could share that, please. Read the quote, please, first.
For if the sun breathed maggots and a dead dog, being a good kiss and carry him.
Okay.
A couple lines before, he called Polonius a fishmonger, which is a pimp, and the carry-on is a whore. And I felt like he was comparing the sun breeding maggots and a dead dog to him breeding with a whore. So it was basically asking if he bred a maggot in the whole line.
Okay. Okay, so he compared you said the maggot, the dead dog, to the pimp-whore relationship. It was basically insulting to Polonius, right? Either insulting his wife or his daughter. Some of the group wasn't sure who he was insulting. Hamlet was insulting Polonius' relationship. What other translations did you guys get from that? Did someone get something completely different? That was a hard one, and I know that people struggled with that one, yes.
Well, I almost got what he got, but instead I said that it's just like blistering heat turns a dog rotten and it's repulsive. So is the fact that even though his daughter is a good person, I guess, that she can be turned into something rotten, even though she's a good-looking person.
Okay, all
I
right.
guess just physically.
Okay, so you went along the same lines. Okay, so basically she's a good person, but she can be turned into something else. All right, like some of us talked about maybe the sun. Its intentions aren't necessarily, the sun does what it does, but it can turn carrion, it can raw flesh, it can sunburn, you know, it can be, lots of things can happen with the sun, although its intentions or what its original purposes isn't necessarily bad. Something can change that, a sunburn, you know, maggots growing in a festering, you know, body. Lots of good ideas. Anyone else have anything to add to that? Okay, we have a couple minutes, so let's get to number 4. Let's hear from a group on this side. Have we heard from this side yet? Quiet side? Who wants to share number 4? Somebody?
Okay. Get thee to a nunnery, why wouldst thou be a breeder of sinners? How I translated this is, why would you want to be part of evil? Why would you want to be in this sector? Get to something better, get to a nunnery, which is a place of cleanliness, their opinion.
Okay. So who is he talking to? Do you remember?
Ophelia.
Yes, he's talking to Ophelia. So he almost is, would you say that he's being rude to her, but is he being rude just to be rude, or is he being rude and also trying to protect her at the same time? We're kind of getting both things, like he wants to protect her, but he's also being rude and saying, get away from me. Is that kind of what you guys interpreted? Yeah. So go to a safe place, away from me, a nunnery, like you said. Okay, anyone else have anything to add with that one? Is that what everybody wrote down for number 4? Anybody see something different?
Isn't a nunnery also like a brothel?
In your footnotes, it did.
Yeah.
So he could be sarcastic.
Yeah, it can be like, she could take it one way, but he really means it like, you could just go to a brothel, like, you're the same like anywhere you go.
Yes, he could be saying something and he means it in a sarcastic way, so what he says is not what he means. Right. And then Ophelia being sweet, doesn't she go on just responding in a meek, sweet way, the way her character is written, no matter how he keeps insulting her or the things he says. Okay, so that's a great point. The nunnery in the footnote says it's referring to a brothel, so he could have said it in sarcasm. Okay, the last one. Who wants to finish off with the last one for us? Anybody? Again, thank you so much.
Oh, it says, "O confound the rest, such love must needs be cheated in my breast. The second husband let me be accursed." Based off the footnotes, we came up mostly that it's like say or stop saying what you're saying. You know, no woman ever married the man who killed her husband, so it was like torture.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
Okay, thank you. So, do you guys remember who said this line? Who's saying the line?
The queen. I mean, not the queen.
Right, the play queen. So who wrote the lines for that play, that actress to recite? Hamlet did. So does that put this line in a entirely new context? Right, because it's Hamlet's words that he's telling this queen to say. Okay, well that's about it, and I hope this is for your notes to help you in the future, because I think class, am I right? Is that Ben?
Yeah.
So thank you, and I hope this can be a future help for you guys as you finish your tragedy journal.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, usually when someone says something about an honorary, it's not.
Oh, I'm sorry.